Raptors fans knew something needed to change about this team, and the front office has decided that change is trading OG Anunoby. And despite the contract situation with the player, were the Raptors still able to come out as winners in this trade? Let's get into it. This is Amateur Sports, the YouTube channel dedicated to providing you with Toronto Raptors news coverage and analysis in videos just like this. If it's your first time here, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. We're making a late push in the year for 16,000 subs, and you can help us get there. And if you find this video enjoyable or at all informative, make sure you smash that like button as well. But blockbuster trade here. OG Anunoby has a new team, and he has ended up on the New York Knicks. We knew that a Siakam trade was a possibility, an OG trade was a possibility, but still, despite all that, I mean, OG's been here for so long, been such a coveted piece, been such an important player for so long. It feels surreal that he's actually gone here. When I got caught off guard in the middle of downtown Toronto and I saw the Shams Charania tweet, my knees buckled. I almost fell over. I couldn't believe it, but OG is on the New York Knicks. So in this video, we're going to break down exactly what the trade looks like, who won the trade, and what the future plans are going to be for Masai Ujiri and this front office. So OG Anunoby, as you may have already seen already on the New York Knicks, along with Malachi Flynn and Precious Achiuwa. In return, the Raptors get Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett, and a second-round pick. So, judging by OG Anunoby's trade value, this may not seem like the biggest of hauls in return, but you have to understand the contract situation here. OG Anunoby is on an expiring deal. It's possible for him to just become a free agent in the offseason and look for his own team, look for a team of his choosing that may or may not be the New York Knicks. So they have to keep that in mind here. And also what you have to keep in mind is just how much money teams are going to be throwing at OG in the offseason. Like, I've been saying, 30 is going to be easy for OG, but I've been saying, 35 might be something that comes into play. Honestly, could 40 come into play for OG Anunoby in the offseason? The Sixers are going to have a ton of cap space. That's a possibility. The Raptors decided they did not want to risk bringing him back or losing him for free, so they decided to try and cash in on a trade like this. Along with OG, yes, they've sent out Achiuwa and Malachi Flynn. In the last two games, Flynn has not played. He's been completely out of rotation since the lineup switch. Achiuwa as well was out of rotation for both the games. Yes, he got heavy second half minutes against the Wizards, but that's because the Raptors went more small ball and didn't play Pearl as much. So Malachi Flynn is a player the Raptors unfortunately really just won't miss. Maybe fortunately in this case. Precious Achiuwa is a player that, man, there was a lot of promise, there was a lot of potential, but ultimately he was far too inconsistent and really just did not affect games often enough when he was actually on the floor. So not really concerned about losing those two players. We need to be concerned about the return here. So, Immanuel Quickley, let's start with the positives here. What an excellent player that really fits in with the Raptors' needs and wants. Like, how long have we needed a shooting guard who could get buckets, shoot threes, space the floor, and just this six-man archetype? This is a very talented player who I believe one day will be a 20-point-per-game scorer in the NBA. Like, he was runner-up for Sixth Man of the Year last year behind Brogdon. A lot of people thought he should have got it over Malcolm Brogdon for the Sixth Man of the Year consideration. So Immanuel Quickley is a great fit here. He's on the final year of his rookie contract, which means he's a restricted free agent. Yes, that means the Raptors have to pay him, but there is no worry about losing him for free. The Raptors have the restricted free agency in place there. He's a guy they're going to be able to bring back to the team, and hopefully, a young player here with a lot of potential. This is going to be a player the Raptors are banking on longer term to really affect this team, and he's on the perfect timeline to pair with Scottie Barnes. This is an excellent fit next to Scottie Barnes. We're really trying to focus this team in on Scottie Barnes' skill set. This is a perfect player to bring in and combine with Scottie Barnes. I hope the Raptors use Immanuel Quickley as a starter here. He's been getting less minutes for the New York Knicks this season compared to last season, his near Sixth Man of the Year season. However, his numbers are improving. So I think just get him as many minutes as possible for the rest of the season and see how he looks next to Barnes and allow those players to gel more together. Now, perhaps where the negative side of this trade come in, yes, a second-round pick does come to the Raptors. They really weren't going to get a first in this one, so it is what it is. Second's a nice pickup in this one. RJ Barrett is one where there's a lot more considerations as far as his contract is concerned. RJ Barrett, well, polarizing player, but ultimately, I think that some people will be looking at this trade, will be looking at RJ Barrett coming to the Raptors in this trade, and will be thinking this is the blue chip piece in the trade. This is the centerpiece of the trade. Whereas me looking at it, and perhaps some of you looking at it, will see Immanuel Quickley's the centerpiece of this trade. That's who the Raptors wanted, salary-wise, and perhaps betting upside-wise, they've gone for RJ Barrett here. RJ Barrett makes quite a bit of money. The contract's going to be a tough one to swallow here. He's just started a 4-year deal where he's making around $27 million a year. That's one that could look pretty bad in a few years. That's the problem here. RJ's got talent, but it's just talent in certain places. Ultimately, the Raptors have needed floor spacers. Yes, Quickley does that, but RJ Barrett is a very inconsistent three-point shooter. His offensive game is pretty inefficient here. Defensively, he's a bit of a liability. The Raptors in this trade here, look, OG's on an expiring deal. They had to get a little bit of a downside in this trade somewhere to get Quickley. But Barrett, at least there's flexibility. At least this is not a completely dead contract. This is one that the Raptors will have a possibility of maybe flipping for picks or even down the line still being able to move in some capacity. That's a bit of a bonus that you get with this trade here that, okay, with RJ Barrett, that you can stomach it a little bit more. But RJ's game, I'm just not a big fan of RJ Barrett's game. Where we will look to have maybe find solace with this trade and getting RJ Barrett here, one point that's been made extensively about the Raptors coaching staff and everybody involved in the coaching staff is that, well, they're here for development. All of the coaches, Darko and the entire coaching staff is development oriented, is focused on development. So perhaps RJ Barrett is one they're looking at and thinking like, there's a lot of upside here, clearly. A former 3rd overall pick here. Can we find something here that the New York Knicks were not able to find? Can we give him a different role here where maybe he can hone in on his skill set a little bit more and be a much bigger contributor to winning? Is that a development path that they're envisioning with RJ Barrett? That could be the case. I mean, he kind of reminds you of Andrew Wiggins in his first few years in the league. Now, the difference is RJ Barrett's not as good of a defender, but once Andrew Wiggins toned down his role a little bit more and became more precise with his decision-making on offense, that's where he became a bit of a better player. The same can be said with Aaron Gordon with Denver. Now, obviously, the difference between those two guys, they play defense. RJ Barrett's not a good defender, but the Raptors really have to bet on the upside here. However, as much as I don't love the fit, in fact, I don't really like the fit of RJ in Toronto. I think he's still very similar to what kind of Siakam and Scottie Barnes do offensively. There is possibility of upside from a player perspective, what he can do for this team. He's still very young. And there is still the possibility that, hey, you can move that contract. Perhaps you can flip that contract for picks right now. Perhaps tomorrow we're even looking at a situation like that. But ultimately, Immanuel Quickley coming into this team, I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of Immanuel Quickley. I think that's a really good pickup here considering the situation. So overall, who wins this trade? Well, from a Knicks perspective, it's tough to say they win this trade. From a value perspective, yeah, they're getting OG, but does that make the Knicks all of a sudden contenders in the Eastern Conference? Like, probably not. I think it makes them a whole lot better. It adds in some nice floor spacing for Julius Randle and for Jalen Brunson. You have, obviously, now an elite defender, one of the best defenders in the league on your team. The Raptors are sorely going to miss that. But, you know, Immanuel Quickley, RJ Barrett in a second, it's a pretty good return here. Like, I don't really care about losing Flynn and Achua. So if I had to choose, being unbiased as possible, the Raptors probably win this trade. What this will likely come down to is the development paths of Quickley and Barrett. And also, it's going to come down to if the Knicks can re-sign Anunoby. But ultimately, I'm happy the Raptors no longer have to worry about making that re-signing. RJ Barrett's locked in on a contract. Perhaps that's a bit of a negative, but Immanuel Quickley seems like he's going to be here to stay. And that's a prospect that I'm pretty excited to deal with and pretty excited to see what happens in Toronto. So we knew a trade needed to happen. It's very sad here, but there's nowhere and no way I can look at this trade and say that this is a loss for the Raptors. The Raptors lost this trade. OG, of course, is a massive loss for the rest of the season, but you had to consider the risk to reward here if OG was to leave in the offseason. So Raptors front office recognize the deficiencies here. Quickley is an excellent fit. I really like that pickup here if you were going to move OG. Yeah, we can talk about, the past and should we trade him the previous trade deadline in February, March, whatever it was, when 3 first-round picks were offered for OG. Is this better than 3 first-round picks from Memphis? Well, obviously looking at Memphis right now, perhaps we're looking at them a little bit differently, but had they had OG, I mean, honestly, I think this trade looks a bit better than that would have looked. So ultimately, from my end, not upset. I think this is a solid return. Time will tell who comes out as a true winner from it, but I'm pretty satisfied here. The front office certainly sees where the team needed work. Part of it has been addressed. There is a lot more work that needs to be done, but this is a pretty good step in the right direction, hopefully, to rectifying what's going on this season. So the wonder will be if Siakam is going to be the next one in any capacity, if we really commit to Scottie Barnes. But The signs are here that there's recognition by the front office that there was a problem in Toronto. Again, a lot more work to be done, but a solid first step. So, what do you make of this OG Anunoby trade? Who won this trade? Give me your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. That's all for me for today. Smash that like button if you enjoyed and subscribe. We're making a late push in the year for 16,000 subs. Help me get there and get all this great Raptors content on Amateur Hour Sports.